So it's been a while, but I'm back at the barn and I'm able to play with some of the other stuff, like this UAZ. So it's not been started for a few weeks, but watch this.
1 hour later.
I think there was more lack of fuel up in the float chambers than anything. So as you may have seen in a previous video, I fitted an SU carburettor, originally some sort of Russian downdraft on it, and there was too many bits wrong with it. I didn't think it was worth trying to make it work better. I thought I was going to go straight to an SU. So this is a HS6, which is a 1 3/4 choke SU carburettor, and it's originally off a Triumph Dolomite Sprint, although on the Sprint they'd have two, feeding a 2 litre 16 valve engine. So I always sort of thought that this would probably not be rich enough for a full 4-cylinder engine, whereas the original carburettor sort of only having to deal with 2 cylinders. My thought process may be slightly wrong, because there's only 1 cylinder drawing at a time, but that is what I was thinking, and I think I'm right, because when I'm doing above about 40 mile an hour, this thing does seem quite lean. Lots of noise, not a lot of go. Lots of induction noise, but not a lot of power. So with an SU, they have a needle inside them. And if you can remember back to the previous video I showed, as the throttle opens, airflow increases into the engine. This damper raises upwards, needle, which is tapered, pulls out of a jet. And the fact that it's tapered, as it comes out, more fuel comes in. Now, the profile of that needle is important to the amount of fuel that goes in there. So this is the new needle I've got going in. It's a bit tricky to see, but you might just be able to work out that it's fatter up the top and thinner down the bottom. And if you'd imagine the bottom of the screen is where the jet is, as it pulls out, more fuel goes in. So this is a richer needle than what's in it. I chose this one because this is a BGB needle. They've all got like 2 or 3 letters identifying what they are. This is a BGB, and this is what they fit to series Land Rovers when they fit SU carburetors to them. So being that is an equally weedy 4-cylinder with a single 1 3/4 SU, I thought it'd probably be a good starting point. There's also comparison websites online, so you can basically put in what 2 needles you're comparing, and it'll show you where they're richer or leaner in comparison to each other. mintylamb.co.uk, check it out, it's very useful. So you've also got a piston return spring, and that again assists, basically stops the piston rising up too fast. A different combination, if by mixing the strength of your piston return spring, this, and the taper of your needle, you can fine tune the mixture. So this is the piston that rises up with airflow, and there you have your tapered needle. So there you can see the jet. You can see it's wound down quite far. Can you see how it's not sitting flush? You can see how it's sat down quite far. That's basically my attempt to get it to richen up by winding the jet further down so it sits on a narrower part of the needle. So what I'll do before I fit this needle is I'll reset it back to its base setting, which on an SU from my days of Dolomites, that was adjusting that so it sits flush with the top, and then send it 12 flats down or 2 turns of the nut. And that's normally a good base point to start with. Here you can see the 2 needles side by side. The one on the left is what came out, the BBT Triumph Dolomite one, and the one on the right, BGB, and you can see how it tapers quite significantly more lower down. So with more airflow, the piston's going to be rising up taking the needle with it and allowing in more fuel. So there you are, I'm happy that's sat flush. Now I'm going to send it 2 turns down. And just so you can see what I'm adjusting, that is the jet adjusting nut there. There you are, that's the jet set to where I think is going to be a good base point. It's also an ideal time to point out how the choke works on an SU. Cable would go through there. It's not fitted at the minute, but acts on this. This pulls up and drops the jet down. Also, it's cammed, so on the back it operates on this, which is the actual throttle. So as the choke pulls, it drops the jet down. That cam operates the throttle and opens the throttle plate slightly more, so you've got a faster idle and it's richer. Small amount of ATF to top it up. Then the damper goes back in. Or we can go for a start. I think it's probably slightly too rich at idle, but I don't want to mess with it too much. Bit of road testing first and see how I get on. One cool thing about these UAZ, I've not tried it yet, but I've seen it in videos. Pull the door catch clips out. Nice. So I am back at the barn. Test drive, I believe, was successful. On the way back from the petrol station, I set the GPS speedo on my phone, and on the flat and level, I hit 61 mile an hour. And on a cruise, that was full throttle, but taking it back to about 80% throttle, still 61 mile an hour. It would cruise at 58 mile an hour, somewhere around that. Basically, to me, it feels equally as fast as the Land Rover was, and that was the aim all along, was this couldn't be any more pathetic than a series Land Rover, and it isn't. It's equally as magnificent. But I've just brought it back because on my test drive, the alternator wasn't charging, and when I stopped for fuel, a hell of an oil leak coming from it, from the clutch is slipping, right? So part of it is the clutch mechanism, because it's all a linkage. It's not hydraulic or a cable. It's all mechanical linkage. It was stiff. I freed that up. It's still slipping. And I was thinking, I bet the rear main is leaking. The rear main crankshaft seal. I bet that's letting oil get on the clutch. But drove it round for a few days and it doesn't leak. It's not bad. It's not as good as an old Saab, but it's better than a Land Rover. But that good thrashing down the dual carriageway then, yeah, the rear main. It could be the gearbox input shaft, but I reckon it's going to be the rear main, hammering oil out. Which is great, because when I was in Futson the other day, buying my UAZ parts, I didn't buy a rear main, because it wasn't leaking. I didn't think it was leaking. Well, it definitely is. Alright, that's going to wrap it up for now. I'm actually going to take the Comma home. I did want to take the UAZ to work tomorrow, but I'll just take the other van. Right, cheers for watching. See you soon. Right, I'm not taking that to work. There's next to no fuel in it, and the local fuel station's bloody closed. So I'll take the 900. But let me show you the oil that's leaking out of this. Not a load, but I need to spare my driveway.